All right, welcome to another episode of MicroShiner's Life Distilled. I'm Brian. I'm here today at Vapor Distillery with an old friend, Joe Laker, and we'll get into his story and why he's here in a bit. But I'm also here with Alistair and Ted, who are the head distiller and head distiller. So let's get into your guys' roles first. Alistair, introduce yourself and just tell me what you do here and why you're here.
Well, I'm Alistair Brogan. As you probably recognise my accent, I'm actually not from Colorado, I'm from Scotland. I moved over to Colorado 6 years ago with my wife, who's an American, Pennsylvania and latterly Florida, and my two young boys who were actually born in Scotland and now raised as proper American boys. And I had this ambition to start making American single malt whiskey. So I brought with me Forsyth's copper pot still. Forsyths are the only company in the world that makes copper pot stills for the Scotch whisky industry. Diageo have got their own coppersmiths called Abercrombie's, but this Richard Forsyth is the only one that makes these copper pot stills, and there's only maybe 2 or 3 in the US at the moment. So I brought the copper pot still over with me, and I was looking for a location. My background was from Glasgow. I joined the military. I was in the Air Force for 10 years, came out, joined a business for 15 years, and then sold my business in 2009, and I arrived here in 2011. So my ambition was to make American single malt whiskey. Looked for a location, could not find a location in Boulder County whatsoever. Very, very difficult to set up a distillery in Boulder County. The land is very scarce and there's lots of rules. So I met Ted probably about 5 years ago. I went around every distillery in Colorado, met every owner, spoke to every owner. And when Ted and I started speaking, he actually asked me to come in and start bottling. So I started bottling, we got to know each other. I became a minority investor in as it was Roundhouse before it was called Vapor Distillery.
Right. I remember that, yeah. It was Roundhouse before.
It was at Roundhouse. We had a trademark issue, as a lot of distilleries have had or will have in the future.
Right.
So that's when I got involved.
Okay. Ted, let's hear your story.
So I got this thing started up back in October 2007. Our first products were the gin and the coffee liqueur. It was hard going during the recession, but pulled it through. Then, like Alistair said, we had some trademark issues, and that scared off all of my investors. And I brought Alistair in, which was a great match for us. And then the rest is what they say is history. So when he brought in his still, we immediately started focusing on making the whiskeys, some bourbon and American single malt whiskey, 3 flavors. A regular American oak, all new oak, and then a peated version, as well as a port finish.
Very cool. Excellent. Okay. Now, thank you, gentlemen. I'm going to chat Joe. So I normally don't do this also, everyone. I usually do this by myself, but I brought Joe. He's a really close friend of mine from California. He's also a certified wine educator. So, Joe, talk about your background a little bit, just so why you're here. Who's this guy? Who's this guy with the beard who's on the camera?
I mean, I love all forms of alcohol, I guess, very crudely put. But I used to live in the Midwest and started studying to become a certified wine educator and a sommelier. I started making wine myself, ended up moving out to Sonoma County, become a winemaker out there, where I met you. I guess I was a little tired of making my wine and aging it, 2 years in barrel and another year in bottle, and 3 years was too long for me, so I started distilling. So what I could do in, instead of 3 years, I could do in 3 weeks.
Right.
And I just fell in love with it. So.
Yeah. That's it's so you guys might be wondering, well, who is this guy with the beard? Anyway, we taste a lot of stuff. I taste a lot of different spirits whenever I do these, and Joe has an amazing palate. So sometimes I always want to know what he can maybe bring to the table that I don't. And maybe he picks up different things as well. So I'm excited for him to taste as well. because sometimes I might butcher things, you know? So anyway, but okay. Well, do you guys want to get into something and taste some stuff first? Or
Yeah, well,
whatever you want to start with.
yeah, we'll start with our Boulder Spirits range. We've got our bourbon, we've got our barrel-aged gin, we've got our gin, and we've got our vodka. And that makes up the sort of Boulder range of our products. We just successfully, with our bourbon, got a double gold at the San Francisco International Spirits. We just got 96 from the Beverage Tasting Institute for our barrel-aged gin, and then 93 for our gin. So we've won some great awards for these spirits. But I'd like to then start, we'll actually start with the gin, because it's really interesting to see how the gin, going from the gin, the clear gin onto the barrel-aged gin, really shows what comes out of the barrel.
Now, I was doing my research, and you guys had the rock gin. This is not the rock gin. No. Okay. This is not that recipe. Okay. Cheers.
Well, it's very, very close.
Yeah.
Okay.
They made a few tweaks, especially with the coriander levels.
Yeah.
But for most people's palates, they can't tell the difference. It's just a little smoother. It's got less of that bitterness that you can get from using too much coriander.
Okay. Nice.
So this gin is at 94 proof. It's got 11 organic botanicals. They're all organic for a really great reason. The gin hangover.
Right.
Cheap gin, you're drinking a martini, and halfway through it, the tip of your nose starts to go numb. A lot of people think, oh, I'm getting drunk really fast. No, you're being poisoned by pesticides.
Wow.
So only organic for us. We try to use organic wherever we can in our process, but we can't always do that. But with our gin, all the botanicals are organic. So it's a New Western style. We're really low on the juniper levels.
Right.
That allows all of our other ingredients to really shine through. But it's very balanced. You'll find that it's not going to smack you upside the head with the juniper or any of the other ingredients. You're not going to go, oh, that's a really big lavender bomb, or oh, that's really big whatever.
Right.
It's a little different.
That's really nice. Definitely get the coriander, but and it's not as hot as you'd think, like 94 proof. You know, it doesn't come across that. And what is Navy strength again? What does it start at?
114.
114. That's right. Okay, cool. Are you guys considering?
Like Coast Guard strength.
Yeah, this is Coast Guard.
Do you know where 94, where 114 comes from?
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, the story. It's so good.
Yeah.
No, yeah. Let's hear it. So Navy strength gin. Quick story. Maybe correct me if I mix something.
Go.
Has to be at 114 proof because the Navy sailors, in case a barrel of gin fell over or spilt and got on the gunpowder, the gunpowder still had to ignite. So that's why it's 114 proof. As opposed to if it was anything less, the gunpowder wouldn't go off, right?
Spot on.
Good.
Spot
Yes.
on.
I learned that story not too long ago, and I was so that's so good.
And how the Navy would prove that traders weren't underselling the proof
Right.
was to actually do that to see if gunpowder actually lit. So if it lit, then bring your gin on board.
Cool.
If it didn't light, you're fiddling with underproof gin.
Mm-hmm.
Really great story.
No, this is
For me,
great.
the gin, I was never really a big gin drinker, but for me, too much juniper was overpowering for me. You know, 2 parts juniper, 1 part coriander, just too much. So this brings back the juniper a lot. What we're finding is there's a lot of people who maybe have had these bad experiences with gins or don't like that overpowering juniper are almost going back.
Right.
And one of the fun things about this is that you're introducing, we do tours and no, I don't like gin. Well, just taste this, see what this likes.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are converting back to gin.
No, that's fantastic stuff. It's really good. Let me finish that. So, Ted, while we're pouring, he's running.
Not
He's
quite.
running. But so
I could help out real quick.
what do you get? What do you get, Joe? Do you pick up all that, the coriander?
You can silent in
love?
the corner. What do you think?
Oh, definitely. I mean, the juniper does take a backseat to it, and but it's very balanced and
Now,
very well made.
Yeah. Sorry, it's funny about the pesticide thing because you never think about that in coming through in alcohol, using organic herbs as opposed to non-organic stuff. Because I mean, just because we are in Colorado and the cannabis industry and all that stuff, pesticides are such a main concern with cannabis products these days, and the parts per billion, parts per million, all that stuff that's happening. It's fascinating, and I'm glad that you're taking it to that level with spirits too, because some people don't, and it's just like people brush that aside and they go, it's alcohol, everything's fine, it's just alcohol, stuff's gonna kill itself or whatever, any bacteria or anything bad. But anyway, I applaud you. That's
distillation
awesome.
process. You're concentrating these flavors.
Right.
That means you're concentrating pesticides as well.
Mm-hmm.
So you might have some ingredients that are kind of low in pesticides, but after you've distilled them, they're really high.
Yeah. No,
Very
that's quality control that I get behind, that I back. Okay.
No, I was curious as far as the gin. Are you taking your main vodka and then steeping it, or are you running it,
Yes,
distilling it through any sort of?
It's a neutral spirit maceration. So we're doing a overnight maceration of all of our botanicals in the pot, and then we distill the next day.
And then you distill through the botanicals as well?
Yeah, everything goes right into the pot. We don't have a basket.
No, okay, that's what I was asking.
Okay. Cool. All right. What's next?
So the next one is our barrel aged gin.
Okay. I rinsed mine out.
So the barrel aged gin, Ginski, which is a old play on gin and whiskey.
Right.
But this is a gin. All we do to this is we take our Boulder gin, we put it in a new American oak barrel, number 2 or 3 char, and then we leave it for 2 years. So it's pretty extreme. Most of the barrel aged gins in the market, tend to be 6 months and maybe ex-bourbon, so they're more gin forward. This is 2 years in a new American oak barrel, and we can touch on this later, the maturation in Colorado is pretty extreme because of the swings in temperature and the very, very hot summers that we have. So we've been doing this, when did you start doing this, Ted?
2011.
And we keep on, it used to be before the trademark issue, Imperial Barrel Aged Gin, and we've won the world's best at the World Gin Awards a couple of times this year, with the best in North America, 96 points at the beverage tasting. It's spectacular, and it's one of our, certainly for our cocktails, it's our best-selling cocktails with our barrel aged gin is our best-selling cocktail.
Excellent. No, it deserves those awards. That is fantastic. How long do you age it for?
2 years.
2 years.
In a 53-gallon barrel.
That's awesome.
New barrels. We don't use used barrels here at all.
Okay, that's awesome too. Again, attention to detail, quality. So what were you were talking about how hard it is to open a distillery in Boulder County. Why is that?
I'll tell you.
Okay.
Marijuana.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Really?
They've taken up all of the industrial warehouse spaces
Okay.
and has driven up rents incredibly. So there's no spare space anywhere in town.
Wow.
If you hop on a bicycle and ride around town, all you smell is skunk. It's
Yeah.
everywhere. So if you're trying to find a place to build a brewery or distillery or any other thing, you have to contend with these very, very rich marijuana growers.
Wow. I really didn't think about that, honestly. I mean, we kind of ran into that into the area where, because I'm from California, it just recently went rec as well. So, and we were looking to moving into a bigger photography studio, and it was so hard. It was challenging. So what we wound up doing is just knocking a wall down and took over 2 units. So it worked. But anyway, that's anyway, well, this is a very nice space you have here. This is very cool.
Thank you.
And you guys have bars here. You could do cocktails here. Some states you can't even do that.
Every state's different.
Yeah.
I think one of the reasons why the laws have been changed here in Colorado is our ex-governor Hickenlooper owned a brewery, so he certainly had an interest to move the legislation a wee bit more modern legislation. Here in Colorado, we're allowed 2 tasting rooms, so we're allowed 2 licenses. we're allowed to only sell our own products. So we can't add a sweet vermouth or a Campari or anything like
Got
that.
it.
We have to be incredibly creative in what we do. And I
Okay.
think a lot of the states, they've got their own tasting rooms. It's exactly the same. So
Yeah.
you're finding a really interesting creativity in a lot of the cocktails that are coming out of the distilleries.
Yeah.
So we run this, again, it's a tasting room.
Mm-hmm.
It's for here to try and showcase our products. We're not like a brewery where it's very, very busy because it's, there's a lot of people drinking beer. Spirits is a wee bit less popular than beer or maybe even wine. So yeah, we keep this going. It's good. It can get really busy in here.
That's good. That's cool.
So do you try to create your own bitters or?
We have our own in-house brand. It's called Cocktail Punk, and it was a local brand that we bought, brought it in, and have increased its sales dramatically. Bitters are really turning into the new thing
Awesome.
all across the country. Everybody's trying to get into it, and luckily we're at the front.
Okay.
We have 12 different flavors. 3 of them are seasonal, made from Colorado Palisade peaches and cherries and California grapefruit.
Okay.
Our newest flavor is Colorado lavender, which is really very nice for cocktails. It's growing so fast, we had to buy a new bottling line just to keep up with the demand.
You're the punk out of the two.
Growing up, that was my music was
What are you
punk.
saying I am then?
He was a metalhead.
But we've got a great guy who runs this for us, Ray Sneed, and he's been developing these over the last few years with some great restaurants like Frasca in Boulder and Oak and 13th. So he's created it. The big difference that ours is that it's 100 proof in these bitters.
Nice.
So we use the alcohol for the extraction. We don't use glycerol or any artificial extractors.
Good.
And so it's doing really, really well. Again, we try and stick to as much organic as we possibly can, but it's sometimes difficult to get that or having it certified. But it's going. This side of it is going really well. We're expanding our distribution. We're in about 10 states now, and people are taking it a wee bit more seriously. Yeah.
Very cool. That's awesome. No, bitters are so fun to make and to mess around with.
And
they're
integral in all different facets of cocktail making.
Yeah.
They're basically just compounded gin. That's what they are.
Yeah. Very cool.
That's right up my alley.
Yeah. All right. Do you want to move on to the bourbon?
Yeah. Well, just to finish the barrel age.
Okay. Yeah.
What we're finding, this is our number one seller as far as cocktails, and we've got some great following with this. It is the type of spirit that people are really intrigued with. They want to taste it before they buy it. But once they're starting to buy it, we're finding we're getting a great niche here in Colorado. We just opened in Texas and Illinois, and Texas especially, really excited for this to go into the sort of premium cocktail bars, because you can do a lot with this. You can drink it as a whiskey, or for example, a Negroni, or just a splash of ginger beer.
Martinez is my favorite.
Yeah.
Martinez. Yeah. Ugh. Yeah. I was recently in Amsterdam. Drank a lot of Genevers. They're different though in terms of like how they're produced and aged, but Anyway, I don't know how that segues into barrel aged gin. I should just stop. But
So
all right.
speaking of, have you is the name Jinsky trademarked?
Yes.
Awesome. Awesome.
We did have a little issue because there's 50 surnames in the United States, 50 with the name Jinsky.
Right.
And there'll be a Jinsky with an EY.
Once we've got, well,
Well, we couldn't
couldn't
trademark
do it.
that because of a certain vodka brand.
yeah,
Oh,
who
wow.
actually protested when we tried to do that. And we then put the E in, we tried to do both.
Mm-hmm.
And they were okay with that. But how that works, I still I
Right.
can't figure out. But
That's cool.
trademark issues has been a real, and I think a lot of distilleries overlook trademarks.
Yeah.
Okay, so
But there does seem to be a few people maybe that are trying to jump onto that barrel aged gin as well, but
Everybody that's making gin is figured out they can buy a barrel and start barrel aging it, and then they have a second SKU to put on their sell sheets.
very nice.
So this is our Boulder bourbon.
Okay.
Our Boulder bourbon really is unique compared to what's on the market at the moment. Bourbon, 51% corn, but what we do is we put 44% malted barley.
Okay.
So it's incredibly extreme. The most that we've seen is maybe 5-10% malted barley, but we decided, because we're making our single malt whiskies, is to up that malted barley, be very different, be very unique, and 5% rye. And what we've created is something which is very, very smooth, which is also part of the distillation process,
Yeah.
but also something that has got hints of what you would normally expect from a single malt whiskey. So it has some of those sort of fruity notes that you would not really expect in a bourbon. So it's been received incredibly well.
It starts off sweet, but it ends a little drier on the palate. And that small amount of rye really tastes like there's a lot more rye in there than there is.
I was gonna say, yeah.
That's because of all that malted barley.
Where do you source your corn and grain from? Is it from a mix of different places, or?
Yes, it's a mix. So we import our own malted barley from the UK. And then the corn and the rye, we get local if we can, but definitely it's from the US.
Yes.
Awesome. And this was you age. How long do you age this bottle?
So this batch was 19 months in 15-gallon barrels with a number 3 char. So equivalent to a 53-gallon barrel, that would be about 3.5 years. The next batch coming out will be about 2.5 years out of a 53-gallon barrel.
We made the decision with 15 gallons, you bring it out a little quicker, but we still needed to have it in the barrel for at least 18 months to get most of that oxidization done. And it's not economic really to use small barrels, because small barrels are literally about $20 less than the big barrels, because it's the work, it's the labor that's got to go rather than material into it. So we're now all onto the big barrels. But you do need that sort of year and a half, 18 months, really to get that major part of the oxidization working.
And virtually all of your oak program is American
Yes.
oak.
Yeah, Missouri
Missouri?
wood.
Missouri.
Yeah, I really like Missouri oak. It has a sweeter finish to it. Doesn't seem to be as bitter as some of the other states' woods. And it's a little closer to home, so we use Missouri oak whenever possible.
Very cool. That's awesome. That's good. Yeah, fantastic stuff. It is drier. It is drier. I noticed that. Definitely.
But it's still, you taste it and you go, yeah, that's bourbon.
Yeah, that's
You
great.
really taste the corn.
Mm-hmm.
So this is just got double gold at the San Francisco International.
Okay, congratulations again. Definitely killing it out there. That's a fun event. It's really cool. I've been there once or twice.
I've not been to the event yet.
You haven't?
We just enter it.
Yeah.
Well, I think that, and maybe you'll agree with me, but the San Francisco, the New York, and the beverage tasting seems to be the sort of best competitions, premium competitions, certainly in the US. There's a lot of competitions that can be entered, maybe too many competitions, but those tend to be the best.
Yeah. All right. Now, Alistair, you're from Scotland. You have a passion for single malts.
Yes.
And you guys just labeled your first bottles today.
Literally, those bottles were labeled a few hours ago. We were waiting for some of the packaging to arrive in.
Okay.
This is actually a big day for me because, I started thinking about this about 8 years ago, and then I moved to the States, and then I met Ted, and then we got this still in, and then all the issues with that, then barreling it, then waiting for the packaging. So it's been a long, long time coming. So these were just off. We did 3 bottles of each, and they should be launched in Colorado by the end of this month, very beginning of next month. So, in single malt whiskey, this is not a Scotch. This is an American single malt whiskey.
Right.
It's matured in America. It's using new oak barrels, and it's using local water here, which comes off the Arapahoe Glacier. So that is really, really important. The Scotch whisky industry boast about the great waters of the Speyside, the islands, the Highlands. And I think the way that the US is going, that you're going to have regions of single malt whiskey within the US. You're going to have the Northwest, where it's snow melt. You're going to have the Northeast, which is snow melt.
Yeah.
You're going to have the Rocky Mountains, which is snow melt. You're still going to have Kentucky, which is coming through limestone through the wells. So you're still going to have that, but you're not going to maybe make single malt whiskey without naming certain states where the water maybe isn't as good.
Right.
So especially the climate here makes a big difference. We have huge swings in temperature. When you go to Scotland, it's cold during the day, during the night, and all summer, although they've just had the warmest summer in history. And also they're using...
Which is still probably cold.
Yeah, which is still in the high 80s. And then you've got you're also using old oak in Scotland. So what we're doing here, and what other distilleries are doing, is making a very unique product that's an American single malt whiskey. And there's a group of, I think, about 50 of us who, if you go on to americansingle-malt-whiskey.net, I think it is, we are trying to convince the TTB and then ultimately the Treasury to actually have this as a category.
Right.
So if this becomes a category, it will be 100% malted barley, because it only needs to be about 51 malted barley at the moment. It can go in any oak, which at the moment it has to go in New American oak. If that changes, then they're going to be able to compete. The Americans are going to be able to compete on the world stage against the Taiwanese, against the Japanese, who have all got those rules in place. And that's exciting, because what I'm learning about America, when they start doing things, they start doing it well. So, a few years the Japanese did it, and now some of the best single malt whiskies come from Japan. Some of the best single malt whiskies come from Tasmania, an island off Australia. So
Right.
we are pretty excited to be able to maybe start at that point, that revolution of American single malt whiskey.
That's
Are
that's
there-
exciting.
Are there any organizations out there that you can jump onto and be a part of as far as like standards, like EU standards for production, that will give their stamp of approval for you, or other than
I haven't heard anything yet.
No.
But
like something
I'm
that could
sure
be
it's going to start.
across the board,
Yeah.
that allows the consumer to know that you are, hitting those rigorous standards.
Yeah, right now the big push is just to get it classified as a style. Once we get that done, then we can start doing the little stuff like that.
And then the two that you're offering, well, it's virtually the same base, and then the second one you're peating.
Yes.
And then the peat is coming from Scotland.
It's already malted with peat. It's dried out using peat in Scotland. You
don't have a bonfire in the back.
No.
where you're-
No.
Well, we actually looked into peat here. Now, I know in the Northwest, you can actually there's peat fields.
Really?
Yeah. And there are some distilleries using that. But what we've discovered here in Colorado is, yes, there is peat fields, but they're at 10,000 feet. And secondly, they're protected because there's so few of them. So, peat in Scotland and Ireland, you want to get rid of them. There's so much of them. But here in the US, it depends where you are.
I just did what do you know where the peat comes from that is in this malt? So I didn't know if it would have more of a island feel or Speyside or
No,
Highland sort of.
you tend to find in Scotland most of the barley goes through only 4 companies. So Scotland can't make enough barley for its industry. So it's England and even mainland Europe. So there's 4 traders that buy that barley, and it's a specific barley that year's harvest. So last year was Concerto barley. So they all make it to the exact same standard, and all the whiskey distilleries in Scotland will pick one of the 4 main dealers or traders to actually buy their barley off. So it's absolutely almost identical in every way. So Islay will still buy their peated malted barley from the same people as maybe Lowlands, not so many as Lowlands, but maybe Highland whiskies buy their peated barley. It's the same.
Interesting.
Yeah. The added advantage is they're beside the coast, sea salt,
Right.
but they also use obviously a lot more peated, a heavier phenol count of peat than others. We have got how many phenols? About 8 or 9.
In the finished product, yeah, maybe 6 or 7.
Just don't sell yourself short.
Whereas
So the one you're tasting right now, this is non-peated. So this is just our regular straight single malt whiskey. It's at 84 proof. This one was aged for 2 years, and new barrel, and I think it's quite smooth and can be given to any Scotsman, and they'll say, "Oh, that's good Scotch."
2 years in a 15-gallon barrel, so that equates 3 to 4 years in the larger 53. After this batch, it's all 53s that come off.
And are you able to store and age everything on site, or do you have a separate facility?
Yes, the room right next door is where all of our barrels are.
We've got just short of 1,000 barrels. We'll have 1,000 barrels by Christmas. So that's going to be, really, we're going to try and stick to having 1,000 barrels. That's between our bourbon, which is less, single malt whiskey peated, which again is not as much as the single malt, and then our barrel aged gin. So we've got 1,000 barrels stored.
And those are all for just the single use, and then once.
Yes, single use, and then there's a huge market now. You know, you'll probably have realised for beer breweries buying them back. So we actually find it very easy to sell them. We put
Or winemakers that can't afford new barrels.
I haven't had any winers
no.
Not so much out here, but in
Yeah.
Northern California, where we used to live.
Yeah. No, we find it quite easy to sell the barrels. There's queues of people wanting them once we put them on our newsletter, Facebook, and normally breweries looking to age their. Avery, for example, makes some phenomenal. They don't buy their barrels from us. Make some phenomenal barrel aged stouts.
And last year at the GABF, there were several beers in the barrel aged category that won gold medals that used our gin barrels. The day after that competition, my phone was ringing off the hook because everybody wanted one of my barrels. I'm like, sorry, there aren't any for another 2 years. You're gonna have to wait.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
it's cool.
Yeah, that
That's
tastes
good.
delicious.
No, that is great. Nice. It's the finish is a little hot but spicy. It's
That's what I like.
so good. Yeah,
Nice,
it's awesome.
lingering.
It stays with you.
stays
It
with
stays
you,
with
so.
you. Our still is designed for slightly heavier whiskies. The line arm is sloping quite far down, 11 degrees down rather than up. So you're not going to get as light. And that's the great thing about Scottish copper pot stills. You can get a still to designed for almost where you want the taste to hit. Really from that light to heavy. So it was designed for a slightly heavier whiskey.
So, how many times would this be distilled?
Well, we do a strip and then we do a spirit.
Got it.
So just twice.
just
It's
twice.
tradition. Yeah. If we did it 3 times, it would be really, really light. There wouldn't be a lot of those cogeners in there. It'd be more like an Irish whiskey.
Irish whiskey. Yeah. What Ted also does is the way Ted distills this is more focused on quality and smoothness rather than yield. What you find in Scottish distilleries is that it's all about as much yield as they possibly can get. So they cut their heads and tails very, very differently to the way we cut our heads and tails.
Cheers.
So what we end up with is not as good a yield. I just mix it. Not as quite as high a yield, probably 10-15% less, but what we're getting is a smoothness. And we need that because there's a lot of elements that if you cut it off like the Scottish, those are those elements that require longer in the barrel. But we can't afford to keep it in the barrel for too long. If you keep it in the barrel too long in new oak, There is a slight danger is you can over oak that. So if we kept it in for 4, 5, 6 years, because it's new barrels, you can over oak it, and it's almost like licking leather. So you don't really want to do that. So we've got to be, and then, you know, we talk to other bigger whiskey distilleries.
So you're saying I shouldn't like licking leather?
You shouldn't, unless you like licking leather.
Whatever your fetish is, we don't judge.
Depends what situation
Don't
you're
tell
in.
me what to do.
But yeah, so we chat to the other big single malt whiskey distilleries in the US, and we chat about, you know, barrel aging and issues and problems. And the great thing about, and I really like about this industry, is that people are willing to talk to you. So we can phone up some of the other distilleries and say, hey, how do you do this? What are you doing there? Are you having this problem? And it's pretty cool.
No, that's one thing I've always noticed about distilleries is in the beer industry, you tend to get like people a little bit of competition, you know, like don't drink that beer, drink this beer. I was hesitant at first, like, because I do podcasts like 2 in a row. I was hesitant to tell the first distillery, like, yeah, I'm going to go over to this distillery next, because I didn't know if there's maybe like animosity or some, you know, some battle there.
Not yet.
But the reality is everyone's like, oh yeah, I've finished a podcast at one distillery and they're like, oh, you got to go here, you got to go here, you got to go there. I'm like, cool, because I'm going to go there.
Yeah.
I won't make it to this place.
It's a lot like it was in
Yeah.
the brewing world back in the 90s, where
Yeah.
everybody was holding hands and singing Kumbaya.
Yeah. Good.
Now there's so much competition that people are looking over their shoulder going, who's behind me? Who's behind me?
Right?
Yeah, it's really changed a lot.
That's good.
Well,
I was a
still-
microbrewer for 18 years, so I came from that tradition. And to be in this distilling world and have that tradition here as well, it really makes me happy.
Yeah. Do you drink much beer now?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I still do. Okay,
Yeah.
good. It's funny because I found myself so infatuated with spirits that I'm always drinking a different spirit. Like I gotta try everything now. I still enjoy beers, but I don't really pursue them as much as I do craft spirits and local stuff.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. Even, you know, supporting local beers and breweries is ideal as well. But I just find myself maybe enjoying whiskey over beer, like just spirits. I don't know, but
Yeah,
what's yours?
depends on your mood.
Yeah,
How hot
exactly.
is it
Yeah.
outside?
Yeah.
Exactly. It depends on your mood.
So this is the peated single malt.
Uh-huh.
Like we said before, it's pretty low on the phenol content. I made it to my taste. That's my philosophy here is I make things that I want to drink, and if I like it, that means a lot of other people are going to like it as well. I can't please everybody, and nobody can please everybody. If you do try to please everybody, you're probably going to please nobody.
Right.
So
I think it's just as delicious. Very, very clean, very approachable, but not without character, if you will. So it's not stripped or so homogenous that it's void. I think it still has brings a lot to the table, but as smooth as it can be.
yeah. This one's a lot fruitier than
Yeah.
the regular single malt.
I want to say I'm getting like cola notes or something. Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah,
little
maybe a
cola,
little.
Yeah.
So this is a different barley variety than the regular single malt. Regular single malt, that's the concerto. This variety is a little less plump, has a lot more ester quality to it, especially when it ferments.
Okay.
We're using a Belgian style yeast, so that really brings out the fruitiness of everything that we make. And if you add a little bit of water to this, it really blossoms.
Ooh.
Currently, it's at 84 proof.
I do this a
A
lot.
bit more than that.
A bit more? A few more drops?
No.
Yeah, I tend to bring it down to about 60, 65 proof.
Okay.
And
It opens up. a
that,
bit.
that really opens it up. Just adding a couple drops to it, yeah, you can do that. But really, you want to bring it down to the point where the alcohol burn is completely gone.
Okay.
So I know where all these were done in the famous still that you brought over. Do we ever employ a column still here as well for the vodkas or to get to
No,
the high enough proof to consider it a
no.
vodka?
So a column still, you know, if you're an engineering geek, you love them. because engineers are all about the extremes of being pure as possible. But, I'm in the business of making flavor. There's no flavor in vodka.
Right.
I don't drink vodka. I hate vodka. I don't even want to sell vodka, but we
I
kind of
had to persuade him to make vodka.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, it sells okay. But, it's by law odorless, colorless, and tasteless.
Right.
If you can smell or taste your vodka, it ain't vodka. It's something like Eau de Vie or something else.
Yeah.
The best neutral spirit is made on really large column stills that have more than 100 plates, runs 24 hours a day, and it's commodity. It's really cheap stuff. So that's what we do. We buy our neutral spirit. It's like a blank white canvas for us. And then we can do
I wasn't sure if
And
you're
you're-
taking your cuts from other products and then being able to transfer that to like distill it a few more times and then get a vodka.
You really cannot make a vodka with a pot still. I know a lot of people are trying to do that, but sorry guys, you're not making good stuff.
You can't get high enough proof.
No.
Yeah.
We're buying it in 193.
92.
92. So as Ted says, it's a blank canvas to then add the botanicals to. Otherwise, we actually have a couple of barrels of Jennifer gin, which isn't very popular in the US. I don't think it's popular at all, even if people have heard of it.
Right.
Whereas in where you just were,
Amsterdam, yeah.
it's very popular. And we may end up trying to do some Jennifer gin on the still, which would be fun and interesting.
Yeah.
Is it commercial? Probably not, but it'll be fun and interesting. But as Ted says, blank canvas for especially for the gin, so we can add the botanicals to it.
Yeah. So you buy the vodka, but you're not happy about it.
No.
That's good.
It's
It's a necessary evil, unfortunately.
Ted
It
is
is.
Ted is a creative one. We only introduced the vodka about 2 years ago, and it sells pretty well.
Yeah.
It sells pretty well. So from a commercial aspect, and you'll find, obviously, you go around, a lot of the distilleries start with their vodkas and their gins to get the cash flow. It's still 33% of the market. But we're getting to a position now in Colorado, as they're doing in Oregon, or some of the states have got a lot of distilleries, where the biggest liquor stores are going, enough's enough, guys. We can't put any more local vodkas on. Enough's enough. We don't want to put any more local. We just entered the Illinois state, for example.
Yeah.
And the guy said, your vodka is tremendous, but don't give me any more vodka. We'll take your gins and everything else, but vodka is vodka, and there's a lot of people doing it in Illinois distilling, so they're taking the local side of it, which is fine. I can live with it, but it's bringing money in.
Yeah.
Speaking of going to Illinois, how many states are you able to find Vapor Distillery?
Well, we always knew this, that as soon as we launched the bourbon, that would start pushing into other states. And since we launched the bourbon, Texas have taken us on in a big way, Illinois have taken us on, and then we're in 8 other states out with that. We're focusing on the big states at the moment. We're working in California, working in Florida. Florida's a wee bit tougher as far as craft spirits are concerned. California is very tough to get a distributor, as it was Texas. So once we start packing up the single malt whiskies, we had a lot of interest when we were selling these products. When's your bourbon coming out? The bourbon's coming out, it's opening more states. When the single malt whiskies come out, we're going to open up more states. But we want to do it in a controlled manner. So, for example, Texas, a lot of distilleries may not have the background in distribution or background in how that works. And a lot of the big distributors are cautious about small distilleries. So we want to do things right. We want to be able to really enter the market properly, well-funded, well-supplied. So right at the moment, Illinois, 13 million people. Texas, 28 million people.
You want to give people VD the right way.
Give people VD the right way. There's not many ways you can give people VD, but we want to do it the right way.
Right.
So yeah.
That's exciting.
Very nice.
Well, I love your peated whiskey. I love the peated single malt. So just to reiterate, so the malt is imported from Scotland.
Yes.
Yes.
And we are working with a malting house here in Colorado.
Excellent.
has changed over from selling their malted barley to Coors.
Okay.
And there's a big difference.
Yeah.
Big difference. Whereas single malt whiskey tends to only be 5-10% of some of the bourbons. In Scotland, it's 100%. So the Europeans are way more advanced than the Americans.
Yeah.
At that kind of that grain. So we're doing that. We're working with the Colorado malting house at the moment, and we're trying to say, right, okay, let's transfer over slow time. We're using some of their stuff, but over slow time, let's sort this out. And they want to sort it out because they realize there's a huge market for malted barley if they get it right.
No, the American single malt industry is there. I guess that type of spirit is definitely exploding. I was just in Atlanta.
I'm ready for it.
Right.
Yeah, right. Yeah, me too. When I was just in ASW in Atlanta, and they're doing some killer single malts as well. I hate to say it, this is better though. This is great. This is really good. Sorry, ASW. I love you guys. But also, I guess. Shoot, I forgot what I was gonna say. So also, okay. So malting it. So the malting is a whole nother process.
Yes.
When you malt, spirit, malted rye, malted all that stuff. So you're talking people around here are gonna start trying to malt the barley that's grown here.
Well, there's a company called Rootshoot,
Okay.
which is in Berthoud,
Loveland.
And they have brought in, it's a spectacular malting machine from Germany. And it's, it fills a 20,000 square foot space.
Okay.
And they were doing a lot of malted barley for Coors. They're moving some of their production to their own malting house, and they're starting to malt it. And so they probably the leading edge, the first, I can't remember how big it is, but it's
10 tons per batch.
10 tons per batch, which
Wow.
is small.
Small.
Scottish standard, but
Yeah.
as big as you're going to get in the US. So that is a really, really interesting. There's a couple of lads who are doing it who have really investigated the beer side of it and the malting side of it, and so they are progressing really well. But it's a fascinating visit to make.
No, and that's the thing that's fun because I know, as a distiller, you kind of want to have your hand in everything, right? I mean, I know I did. I was an amateur distiller with this gentleman. We were just kind of not bootlegging, but moonshiners, I guess, whatever. We were making stuff in our backyard, having fun, and I was hooked. That's when I was like, okay, local distillers, I got to check every single one out. I got to get into these places, and here I am. But I went to the point where I was even like toasting my own wood. Like I wanted to have put my fingerprint on everything. Now that's not the case for some distillers. Some distillers are like, they'd rather, have everything else done, and then all they have to worry about is the distillation. Mm-hmm. Like for example, when I was in Amsterdam, Fanny Van Weiss of the Van Weiss Distillery, she doesn't even ferment. She buys the ferment and then she just distills. And I just think that's interesting.
Well, you got to look at it from the point of view of, are you an expert at everything?
Right.
Or are you just okay at everything?
Yeah.
So it's best to use the experts.
Yeah.
Let them do what they do and do it really well.
Exactly.
And then take those incredibly high quality ingredients and use those in your process, and then do it as well as you can.
Yeah.
If you're just okay at malting and okay at coopering and okay at this and okay at that, it's going to just taste okay.
It's just going to taste okay.
Well, I mean, some of the Stranahans, for example, started off bringing their own wash in.
Yeah.
There's some great stories. There's a Welsh, I can't remember the name, single malt distillery, and also the first Welsh one, the first English one. They did the same. They didn't. The wash was what they wanted to buy in, and then they distilled it because they were good at distilling, but they weren't great at the brewing side of it. So that's how they started off.
Yeah.
We want a hand in as much as we possibly can, but there's a limit to what we can do.
Yeah.
And as Ted said, put out to the experts. A lot of the Scottish distilleries are moving away from malting their own products as well.
Yeah.
They bring it all in. Used to have the floor malts. Almost none of the Scottish 108 distilleries have got, maybe 5 or 6 of them do it themselves. They see it more as a tourist attraction. It's the same as even the old wooden fermenters. They're moving away and putting them in stainless steel because wooden fermenters creates problems. You can have bacteria. You know, you're cleaning them. You might miss some. So they're moving towards stainless steel, and what they're finding is they're getting that level of consistency. So what we want to do is get consistency. We're not a Johnny Walker, so you can taste the same product in Timbuktu and Denver. It's going to be the same. They use gas spectrometers to see what barrels they want to do. We've got the authenticity, and we're doing batches. Our one batch will taste slightly different from the next batch, but if we were doing all those processes, maybe the difference would be wider. And we're trying to have a consistent taste to what we're doing.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you have a brewing background, Ted. So I mean, that's awesome. So there it is, right there. You trust yourself with the fermentation.
Yes.
I cannot ferment anything. I suck at that stuff. That's where this guy came in. Whenever we'd play in our garage and make some stuff, but he's as a winemaker, Joe. But
well, Ted says to me,
you
can make a distiller of a brewer, but it's difficult to make a brewer of a distiller.
Absolutely. I mean, I
agree.
Yeah. I think more of the craft is in the fermentation myself as well. You know, I mean, there's lots of stuff you need to pay attention to with distilling.
Well, a lot of people think, oh, I got a bad batch of beer, I'll just distill it. Mm-hmm. No, it's good in, great out.
Yeah.
Bad in, horrible out.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't make bad booze into better booze.
Right.
It just doesn't work.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, you guys made some great booze. Not gonna lie. So when do the single malts hit the shelves?
Well, this is fortunately our European label, because we're starting exporting to the UK in the next 2 months.
Okay.
An interesting fact about single malt whiskies is that a lot of the single malt whiskey guys who've started up have actually ended up exporting over half their products.
Wow.
Because the rest of the world are quite, how can I say it? Knowledgeable about single malt whiskies. So when they see something different on the shelves that are more than the 108 or 109 single malt whiskies, they notice it. So they're pulling it off the shelves. Bourbons are so many bourbons, and you don't know maybe the mash bills of them. They know the mash bills of single malt whiskey. So we're hoping to have, we've just signed off on these labels, European ones, so we can get them out to Europe. But hopefully the 1st of August, our distributor will have it in this state. We will.
I was going to say I have to travel across the pond to go buy the whiskey from Boulder. So I'll do it though. It's good.
We're going to have it. We're going to have it with our distributor, Republic National in Colorado, by the 1st. That's the aim. It was delayed from 1st of July to 1st of August, but I think we want to make it. We want to have it right.
And then beginning of next year, the port barrel finish will be coming out.
Ooh, okay.
So
awesome.
that's the non-peated version, aged in some port barrels. In fact, right there. Yep. We only have 5 barrels of it, so there's not going to be a lot of it. But when these barrels came in, they tasted good.
There was port slushing around it,
nice.
Which is tough in the US because you need to know the history of the barrels. So we've got a good chap who gets them for us, and we know the history of the barrel, which is really, really important because it can dry out if it's sitting in a port. If it starts sitting in a port for 6 weeks, it'll dry out. Scotland's got the advantage. It's only Portugal. So Portugal, they can literally look at the barrels going into the container and then meet it by the time it's up. So they've got an advantage. We don't have that advantage, but hopefully these port barrels are going to be spectacular. That's my personal sherry or port finished single malt whiskeys.
Excellent. Okay.
I know distribution laws in Colorado can somewhat be a little tricky to navigate through, but or as far as shipping to other states and whatnot. But is there a website that the listener can go to either purchase directly or find more information on how to get Vapor Distillery in their hands?
What's it called? Thornton.
Total Beverage
in Thornton. Total Beverage in Thornton are probably one of the foremost in Colorado that have got licenses in almost every state. So you can purchase it in through their website, and they'll deliver to California, to Illinois, to the states that we're not in at the moment. Now, unfortunately, that's expensive. So what we're trying to do is push out to get as many distributors as we can, so it's available in those states. And we're hoping to be in probably half the states by this time next year. So we'll wait and see.
And if you've got a favorite online retailer that you use, ask them. Say, I want this. Give it to me now.
Right.
And then they will look for it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Excellent. Well, gentlemen, that was 55 minutes. See,
Wow.
it's a time suck. It's awesome. Well,
Cheers.
Cheers. But any shout outs? What time does your guys' tasting room open?
It's open right
open.
now.
It's open now, but it's okay. So
It
tasting
opens
room
at
is open.
4 o'clock,
4 o'clock.
To 9 o'clock during the week.
Okay.
Weekends, 3 to 9. Although we do stay open as late as 11 if the place is hopping.
Very
So
cool.
If you got a bunch of friends and you're having
Yeah.
a good time, we'll stay open.
And
Awesome.
what's the address?
5311 Western Avenue, Suite 180. Zip code is 80301.
Boulder, Colorado.
We're only a couple miles from the center of town.
Right on. Perfect. Well, come on down here. Come to Vapor Distillery and drink some single malts. And really, everything's fantastic. But anyway, cheers again, guys. That was fun.
Thanks very
That was
much.
fun.
Cheers.
Cheers. Cheers. Cheers. Clank.